Is that what you want?
Secretary Kennedy, you said you wouldn't, and now you did.
I'm not.
You promised that you would not take away vaccines from anyone who wanted them. You're putting America's babies' health at risk, America's seniors' health at risk, all Americans' health at risk, and you should resign.
Welcome back to Street Reporter. Today, we have a heated exchange that's making waves across America. Secretary Kennedy faced some of the toughest words yet about his handling of vaccines. And let me tell you, this wasn't your everyday political back and forth. This was raw, direct, and explosive. So let's break it down and unpack what really happened, why it matters, and what it means for America's health and politics. In the hearing, Secretary Kennedy was accused of going back on his word. The speaker claimed that Kennedy promised not to take away vaccines.
Promised that you would not take away vaccines from anyone who wanted them.
But then did exactly that, putting babies, seniors, and ultimately all Americans at risk. The words were sharp. You should resign. Now here's where it gets interesting. Even Donald Trump, who rarely gets praised by critics, was brought into the debate. The speaker quoted Trump calling the vaccines one of the greatest miracles in modern medicine, saving tens of millions of lives. Think about that for a second.
President Trump, who I don't usually agree with, called COVID vaccines, quote, one of the greatest miracles in the history of modern-day medicine that saved tens of millions of lives.
Trump, someone often skeptical of institutions, actually gave vaccines one of the strongest endorsements we've ever heard. That's a rare twist.
I said today, I think that President Trump should get the Nobel Prize.
So who's right? Is Trump in the medical community right, or are you right?
So what's going on here? On one hand, you've got the medical community saying vaccines worked. They saved lives, reduced hospitalizations, and gave us a pathway out of the pandemic. On the other hand, you've got Secretary Kennedy, who has built a reputation on questioning federal agencies like the CDC, calling them corrupt or labeling staff as, quote, horrible people.
Did you say that the CDC was, quote, the most corrupt federal agency in the history of the world?
Not the history of the world, but definitely
Did you say
HHS.
Did you say that CDC staff are, quote, horrible people?
Horrible people?
Did you say that they're killing children and they don't care?
No.
This is where the clash explodes. Because when leaders undermine institutions, whether it's the CDC, the FDA, or the DHS, they're not just criticizing policies. They're shaking people's trust in the very system designed to protect public health. And without trust, vaccines, medicine, and even science itself become political footballs. Let's zoom out. Why is this such a big deal? Well, health policy doesn't happen in a vacuum. If the Secretary of Health publicly doubts the CDC, what happens the next time we face a health crisis? Will people listen to the experts, or will they believe politicians over scientists? Remember, during COVID, one of the hardest battles wasn't just against the virus. It was against misinformation, division, and distrust. And when officials fuel that fire by attacking agencies, they're weakening our ability to respond to the next emergency. That's why the speaker called Kennedy a hazard to the health of the American people. Strong words, but they reflect a bigger fear, that politics is overriding science. Now let's talk politics. Calls for resignation aren't just about health, they're about power. When a lawmaker says, if you don't resign, the president should fire you.
But you're on the record for a number of these statements. You are a hazard to the health of the American people. I think that you ought to resign.
It sends a signal, not just to Kennedy, but to the White House. It puts pressure on Biden to act, and it draws a line in the sand. Whose side are you on? Science and vaccines, or skepticism and politics? And for the audience watching this, it's a reminder that health policy is no longer just about health. It's about culture wars, elections, and credibility. Every move Kennedy makes now will be under the microscope, both from supporters and critics. So here's the question for you, the people. Who's right here? Is Secretary Kennedy justified in questioning the CDC and calling out corruption? Or is the speaker right, that by undermining vaccines and federal agencies, Kennedy is putting lives at risk? Let's not forget, vaccines were credited with saving millions of lives worldwide, but at the same time, trust in institutions has never been lower. So where does that leave us as a country? With science on one side, politics on the other, and ordinary Americans caught in the middle. At the end of the day, this isn't just about one secretary or one hearing. It's about the future of health, trust, and leadership in America. If our leaders can't agree on the basics, like vaccines, how do we move forward together the next time crisis strikes?
And if you don't resign, the President of the United States should fire you. Thank you so much.
I want to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below. Should Kennedy resign? Or is this just political theater? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives on the stories shaping America. This is Street Reporter, bringing you the news behind the news. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and keep asking the tough questions.